Welcome. On behalf of the North Dakota Parks and Recreation Department, thank you for joining us for the Fort Stevenson State Park Master Plan Virtual Open House. The Parks and Recreation Department values the opinions of its citizens and park users and wants them to be engaged in their community and their government. In fact, your feedback is vital for the department and for the parks and project success. Your feedback helps us understand your needs so that we can better align resources. If there is a specific section that you would like to jump to, you can check them out in the video description and click on the links provided. My name is Gordon Lummel, and I'm the department's Parks and Recreation Planner and the lead planner for this master plan. A volunteer advisory committee has also been convened to provide strategic guidance and direction for this master planning process. This diverse group of volunteers is comprised of individuals from the surrounding community, and they assist by providing strategic input through the lenses of their areas of expertise, knowledge of the region, and by reaching out to North Dakota citizens for input. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the advisory committee for the many hours they have put into this process and their commitment to the plan's success. The purpose of this open house is to provide you with an update on the status of the master planning process for Fort Stevenson State Park and to provide you with an opportunity to comment or ask questions regarding the project. The agenda for today's virtual open house presentation will cover the master planning process, reviewing data from both internal and external resources, and reviewing what we have heard from the public to date. Master plans are the tangible and often visible statement of where the park is now, what it should be or needs to be in the future, and it identifies what is required to get there. Parks need a master plan in order to be successful. A master plan is more than a desire. It is a document built upon a process, demonstrates a path of achievement, articulates the public's interest and enjoyment of their parklands, and is a tool that informs strategic decision-making. Our master plans are designed to be flexible and dynamic to allow for choices and changes to be made over time while preserving the vision of the park. Ultimately, the plan helps the department to better understand the ever-changing community needs and recreation trends, and it ensures that today's needs are appropriately balanced with the vision for future generations. We use a planning structure called portfolio planning. It is based upon a similar planning structure used by the National Park Service. In this framework, master plans occur at the strategic or visionary level. They identify the vision, values, strategic opportunities, and goals for individual parks. A level beneath the master plan level are the portfolio plans. These plans are tactical and operational level plans that lay out the specific, actionable items to be implemented. These items are guided by the strategic vision developed by and set by the master plan. They also work with and reference each other. The primary difference between this method of planning and traditional planning is that portfolio plans are standalone documents that can be revised and adjusted without having to re-author an entire plan. Master plans are the vision that guide the strategy, while tactical plans are the actions. Just like the game of chess, you must visualize how to achieve a winning scenario prior to making any moves. The pieces that you move carry your strategy into action. We must visualize a winning scenario and play to win. This planning process is facilitated using a proactive and strengths-based approach called appreciative planning or appreciative inquiry. It is a planning approach that is less of a change in planning methods and processes, but rather is a fundamental shift in the overall perspective taken throughout the entire process. Rather than focusing on the things that foster pessimism, overreaction, and negative inclination, such as what isn't working, what is wrong, and what is missing, this strategy searches for the best in people, organizations, and a strengths-filled and opportunity-rich world. It's about reframing your mindset and focusing on what can be rather than what's missing. As author Robin Sharma says, what you focus on grows, what you think about expands, and what you dwell upon determines your destiny. So we choose to focus on what's working right today, prioritizing solutions over problems, and seeking common ground in decision making. The method suits the master planning process particularly well because good plans require a strong vision, partnerships, collaboration, and a recognition of the current reality to move forward. Our process is divided into 4 phases. The dream phase fuels the imagination to determine a preferred vision. Realistic and experience-backed elements are combined to form this vision. The discovery phase defines the current reality based on data and facts. It helps us know what we have right now, and it identifies how it can be used in the formation of a preferred vision. The design phase unites both the stories from the discovery phase with the imagination and creativity from the dream phase in order to direct our attention and our actions. And finally, the delivery phase defines the action plans and defines how to reach that preferred vision. The purpose of the dream phase is to envision what the preferred future of the park is, then rally and become aligned around the shared vision or desirable future scenario. It's much easier to come up with what's not going well and become weighed down by a large list of deficiencies. We use a tool called SOAR, or Strengths, Opportunities, Aspirations, and Results, to start teasing out the long-term vision for the park. The SOAR analysis is a lot like the more familiar SWOT analysis, but it switches our focus and attention to what is working well and going right today. This becomes a springboard for future success. The advisory committee came up with great items for each SOAR category, several of which are shown on the screen. These items were often echoed throughout the feedback received from the public survey and focus group interview sessions. We challenged the advisory committee to switch their way of thinking, that is, switching it to drawing. Drawing forces individuals to change how they perceive what they see or think in a new way, much different than by discussing or writing about it. We asked them to reflect on the results of the SOAR analysis and what the preferred vision of the park was, and then draw what that looked like. The advisory committee came up with a unified preferred vision for Fort Stevenson State Park, which is, through public-private partnerships, Fort Stevenson State Park reflects on the foundation of its past as a springboard to a dynamic future. This vision statement is used to guide decisions and recommendations within this master plan. Identifying the public and customer need is among the primary purposes of master planning, and it is the bridge between the dream, discovery, and design phases of the planning process. This part of master planning helps the department answer, what are we aiming for, where are we now, and what might we need to consider. Information collected from public outreach sets the base framework for the vision and the need of the park. This master planning process employs a robust public outreach strategy that includes an advisory committee comprised of local citizens, the use of a geo app, a public online survey, focus group sessions with agency partners, park users, and constituents, a focus group session with local teens, this open house, and an upcoming live question and answer session. The department opened the public online survey in March 2021, and it held it open for 1 month. During this period, we received over 300 unique responses to the survey. This infographic provides some of the high-level data from the survey results and categorizes them into visitation and use, satisfaction, engagement, vision, priorities, preferences, and investment focus. Several notable items stood out in the results. It was surprising that over half of the respondents said camping was their primary reason for visiting the park, while water access and general outdoor recreation were support activities that they did while at the park. Although, when broken down by duration of the visit, water and lake access was the primary reason for those who visit the park for 8 hours or less. This might suggest that these individuals are local to the area and use the park primarily to put in or store their boats. The values, topics, and areas for highest attention and resource allocation generally aligned with what was expected based on the socioeconomic research and industry trends. The areas of highest need and importance are very much aligned to an experience rather than basic services, and much of what respondents envision for the park include improving existing infrastructure and amenities, as well as expanding and diversifying the amenities and services. Understanding who our visitors are and what they like doing is important to any master plan. This understanding allows us to begin identifying the various topics, amenities, and areas to focus our attention and resources. It also helps us better project future needs and demand at the park. We started the project by reviewing basic visitation data of the park from the past decade. The park has shown steady growth over the past 10 years at an average of 4% annually, which is always great to see and indicates continued interest in the park. Visitors come from all over the country and beyond. More come from North Dakota, with hotspots primarily occurring in the Bismarck and Minot areas. But most visitors on average come from an approximate 140-mile radius from the park. For the purposes of this master planning effort, we will use this 140-mile radius to define the market footprint for further demographic and socioeconomic analysis. Campground occupancy is an important metric for parks with campgrounds. The overall occupancy by accommodation type is generally healthy and strong. The cabin accommodations lead the park's occupancy, which is consistent with industry trends that exhibit an increasing interest in this mode of camping. Both campsite and cabin accommodations lie within the campground hospitality industry's best practice occupancy sweet spot, which is between 75 and 85%. They provided a bit of vacancy on average without being 100% unavailable. Understanding the park's average occupancy helps us better gauge where the park is at, identify priorities, identify where the gaps may be, and develop a marketing and business strategy to meet those goals. One such gap is weekday occupancy rates are much lower than the peak weekends, and a similar trend occurs for off-season occupancy rates. High occupancy does not always indicate a high need for more development. There are many factors that can contribute to occupancy, but one of the most controllable is pricing. Pricing that is too low usually equates to higher occupancy and vice versa. Lower occupancy is not necessarily bad either. Low occupancy also comes with generally lower operating and maintenance costs. Using the determined market footprint as the study area, we reviewed data from 3 socioeconomic resources to determine the common trends and interest areas for the population. These resources are the U.S. Census Bureau's Market Potential Index, Spending Potential Index, and a proprietary source called Tapestry Segmentation developed by Esri. The primary trends or topics of interest for the population within the market footprint include pet ownership, gardening, yoga and Pilates, boating, fishing, running, camping, ATV riding, hunting, a general technology savviness, backpacking, and volunteering. We also reviewed several internal and external documents and plans to continue to help define regional topics of interest, both regional and national trends, and help frame our decisions. There were several key topics of interest that arose from the review, including a recognition of increasing deferred maintenance across the whole park system, a general understanding that parks have a carrying capacity, the demand for outdoor recreation facilities and activities far exceeds the regional supply, youth, women, and non-Caucasian populations make up the fastest growing groups participating in outdoor recreation, biking, hiking, camping, running, and fishing are the top non-organized sports, the interest and demand for unique luxury camping experiences are outpacing all other forms. However, in 2020, RV sales skyrocketed. This is thought to be due to COVID, and it is anticipated that the demand for RV sites will remain high from here on out. There is a recognition of the fluctuating water levels, which impact both access and use. Expanded offerings to increase inclusivity is desired industry-wide, and telecommunications and technology demand is increasing due to new teleworking trends. Parks are also a lot like miniature cities. They have a lot of above and underground assets and infrastructure, much more than most people tend to think about or notice. This is discussed within the master plan because it helps align visitor needs and their vision to the current reality of the park's capacity. Goals under this topic will very often fall into capital improvement and life cycle cost replacement categories. Displayed on the screen is an overview of the major assets at the park and the things that must be considered as we begin developing solutions and goals. You can see that there are many interdependencies. Like a web, changing one area or pulling one thread could change something else and move the entire web. Several topics of consideration were identified as the advisory committee reviewed and discussed these existing assets. Some of the more notable ones included asset condition, inclusivity to facilities and access throughout the park, the capacity to expand and further develop within the existing infrastructure, and general user expectations for condition, quality, and need. We will now shift our focus to business services and management models of parks. Traditionally, two management models have been used in parks and recreation: the social management model and the business management model. Parks and recreation under the social management model are viewed as being created as public benefits. This was the traditional management framework for the past 40 to 50 years. Consequentially, the decisions made within this model do not place high value on the business aspects of managing public facilities and services. The business management model became more prevalent in the mid-90s when Parks and Recreation began to shift to include much more value-added experiences such as rec centers, marinas, and high-quality programming. It was recognized under this model that facilities and programs should strive to recover costs to offer these value-added types of programs, services, and amenities, but not necessarily to the extent of full adoption of private sector values or profit generation. Most recently, the use of these two models have come to an impasse. Decisions in the social model do not place high value on the business aspects of managing public facilities and services, while decisions made in the business model do not place high value on the social and public benefits. For example, the decision to hold user fees low is made from a social model perspective, while the decision to increase fees to support operational costs are made primarily from a business model perspective. It became apparent to the parks and recreation industry most recently that neither of these existing models fully met their needs and demands. A new hybrid model, called the benefits model, recognizes that both a business and social approach are necessary to make decisions in these dynamic economic times. This will help parks maintain the balanced outcomes desired in the park's overall performance. The model still does not imply that facilities and programs should strive to make a profit or should fully adopt private sector values for making decisions. The model can be viewed as a pyramid. As services, programs, or amenities move up to the top of the pyramid, the level of individual benefit increases, and within this model, the percentage of cost recovery should also increase. The essential services, also known as core mission services, are those that the agency must provide to meet its mission, statutory, or regulatory obligations. At this tier, services are largely, if not fully, supported by taxes with little or no cost recovery. The important services are those that build upon the essential services. These are the things that the agency should provide, are important to have to effectively serve visitors, and are broadly supported by all visitors. Services in this level of the model are supported by a balance of taxes and earned revenue. The top of this model are services known as individual services. These are the items that an agency may provide when they are fiscally sustainable through visitor support. Such services are known as value-added services as they provide value to visitors beyond what is required or expected. At this level, services have become so individualized that they should be heavily or fully supported by earned revenues. In other words, essential services are described as everyone receives the same level of benefit with equal access, while individual services are those where users receive an exclusive or individualized service above what a general taxpayer would receive for their personal benefit. In other words, essential services are described as everyone receives the same level of benefit with equal access, while individual services are where a user receives an exclusive or individualized service for their benefit above what the general public would receive. During the master planning process, the advisory committee worked through an activity to identify several of the primary lines or core services that are available at Fort Stevenson State Park. Then, they were challenged to categorize them within the previously discussed benefits management continuum. As you might imagine, there was some anxiety as to what an essential service at a state park should be. Discussion of this as part of the master plan helps the department better understand, evaluate, and prioritize park services in the future as it applies to public values. Ultimately, this helps position the agency to manage service delivery effectively and efficiently with a focus on resource responsibility. Another category under park operations is visitor services. This is the human component of running a park. It includes customer service, programs, marketing, and branding. This discussion helps to support and guide decisions and the focus of the park and the department. Parks across the country are continuously being asked to be everything to everyone. Often, resource limitations, both fiscal and personnel, prevent this. Discussing this as part of the master plan aims to create new opportunities to reach new audiences and stay relevant given the ever-changing populations, needs, and demands. The newest trends indicate that both current and future visitors require and expect enhanced services. This expectation has resulted in several notable service trends developing since the early 1990s. These trends are rooted in parks departments providing experiences rather than just services. These experiential, hands-on activities include adventures, health and wellness, and pampering type services. The technology service trend, of course, is a more recent trend within the last 2 decades. Most research prior to 2020 suggests that technology itself isn't the sole driver. Rather, it's how technology can enhance outdoor and visitor experiences. This is where we have seen an uptick of augmented reality and mixed reality tools. More recent research conducted to study the effects of COVID-19 on the campground industry found that telecommunications like cell access or Wi-Fi is changing from a convenient service to a necessity. In 2020, working conditions required people to telecommute for their jobs, and campground studies found that many people had begun telecommuting from parks and campgrounds. They work for a little while, then they spend time recreating outdoors. It's still too early to fully understand and adapt to this trend, but is one that needs to be continuously monitored. All organizations and their offerings change over time due to a necessity and adaptation to a dynamic environment. The value of this concept is in the ability for the park and the department to plan the probable path of change. It is the awareness of this progression that facilitates the ability to predict what change will occur and to deliberately plan actions that either modify the course or enable optimal adaptation. Each life cycle stage requires different methods, strategies, and levels of management to sustain optimal performance and productivity. Analyzing services, programs, and activities within this concept allows us to identify appropriate management responses to optimize their overall sustainability, delivery, and effectiveness. While it is important to continuously provide new and fresh services, programs, and activities to align with customer needs and trends, it is equally as important to have a stable core of items in the mature stage without dominating the overall recreation portfolio. Those identified in the mature stage should be tracked for signs of saturation or decline. This is an ongoing process of evaluation that ensures services, programs, and activities continue to meet the community's and customers' needs. When we find items that never reach the last 2 stages, it is often an indication of over-tweaking by staff. This results in items never reaching their maximum participation, efficiency, or effectiveness. This is especially a concern when there is limited staff and resource being directed towards underperforming services, programs, and activities that are being sustained for too long and may no longer be aligned with visitor needs. And the greater effect is that it takes away attention and resources from those items that have the highest importance, value, or return for park visitors. The advisory committee worked through an activity where they discussed each high-level service, program, and activity, identified what stage of the life cycle they were in, and identified appropriate managerial actions and responses based on those life cycle stages. Combining the results of this activity with the survey data and evaluation matrix discussed next provides us with a great deal of information about which things are most important and valuable to the public, and ultimately where we need to direct our attention and resources. The ability to offer high-quality services, programs, and activities requires creating a sense of focus around those of greatest importance and value to current and future park visitors. One method used to help staff measure how well services, programs, and activities are meeting staff and departmental goals is an evaluation matrix. The matrix helps inform strategic decisions about the overall mix of services, programs, and activities managed at the park to ensure the appropriate levels of attention and resources are allocated. For the purposes of the master plan, evaluation occurs at the high-level, broad perspective rather than evaluating individual services, programs, and activities. This informs program planning within the considerations of the larger grouping. The evaluation criteria included average or estimated participation, presence of supporting facilities, consistency with department goals, vision, and branding, partnering capability, level of demographic appeal, presence of full-time staff, program accreditation or certifications, and market control, or how unique the service is within the area or region. Additional categories to be added for future evaluation should include cost recovery and tertiary revenue generation, and this ties business and management objectives to the services, programs, and activities. These services, programs, and activities were also included in the public survey to further direct staff and department focus. The results of the responses are graphically represented by combining the two attributes, importance and satisfaction. The results fall into one of four categories. Quadrant A is Concentrate Here, which contains items rated with high importance but low satisfaction. Quadrant B is Keep Up the Good Work, containing items rated with high importance and satisfaction. Quadrant C is Low Priority, containing low levels of importance and satisfaction. And Quadrant D is Possible Overkill, containing items of low importance but high satisfaction. Quadrants A and B generally receive the most attention in terms of a management response. Those items in Quadrant B are the things that most likely draw visitors and should be maintained at current levels. In contrast, those in Quadrant A are the items where the biggest gains can be achieved, and management should target items falling in this quadrant as areas for improvement. The design phase unites the stories from the discovery phase with the imagination and creativity from the dream phase. This is the current phase of the master planning process. This phase directs attention and action and boils down to answering three basic questions. What are the goals and objectives? Who are the supporters? And how are they implemented? The advisory committee will participate in a workshop to begin identifying and developing the recommendations and goals that help shift the park's current reality towards the preferred future vision. These become the things that we rally resources around. The goals identified will be based on needs and trends identified through public outreach and will be supported with the data and information that has been presented to you today. The goals are arranged into 6 buckets or focal areas: infrastructure, business management, visitor services, operations and maintenance, programs, and marketing. We have arrived at the end of this virtual open house. Thank you all so much for learning about the master planning process that we implement for your state parks. It is our hope that this presentation provided you with some new bits of information or an aha moment about Fort Stevenson State Park and the recreation opportunities throughout our state. If you did have that aha moment, any comments or questions, please feel free to continue to participate in this process by visiting the project website or by directly reaching out to us using the contact information on the screen and included in the video description. Thank you all once again.